Welcome to my action research proposal. My first professional practicum took place at a government school located in Western Sydney. 82% of students came from a language background other than English, indicating the cultural diversity of the school, which prioritises inclusive learning environments and strong community engagement. Through ongoing self-assessment, the school measures against the School Excellence Framework to ensure high-quality practices that support the development of self-regulated learners who articulate their learning and can work collaboratively and effectively. The school highlights the student-centered approach with the embedding of innovative technology integration across all KLAs to support the differentiated learning needs of students. My Year 1 class consisted of 22 students who all had an EALD background. The classroom was an open space and offered flexible seating for students to move around and interact in, enabling efficient collaboration. The classroom teacher had 20 years of teaching experience and was organised and structured in her teaching, opting for a more traditional teacher-centred approach. Table points and class dojo points were used as a reward system for behaviour management in the classroom. The class were technologically capable and a majority demonstrated working at the expected level and achieving the set outcomes of Stage 1 in numeracy and literacy and had a sound understanding across all other KLAs. 5 students were working towards learning outcomes and requiring additional learning support, and 5 students were working beyond. Students were social, friendly, and effectively worked collaboratively on tasks. The students were able to complete the lessons. However, it was evident that they were not connecting with the learning experiences and could not reason for their learning. Whilst there were visible markers such as following instruction well and interacting with peers, it was evident that students were not engaged enough to absorb content effectively, and thus it was indistinguishable as to whether they were in task or on task. Whilst they completed tasks, it was evident that students were not forming deeper connections and understandings of content, affecting their ability to articulate their learning and define the process of why, how, and what they had learnt, specifically when working on the English unit. Students were not independently problem-solving, self-assessing, and not adaptable to challenges, disengaging many students from relating to their learning and limiting their understanding. Identifying the need to differentiate learning in a meaningful and effective way led me to my action research rationale. How can I encourage student engagement through purposeful technology integration? In order to address these key learning issues, my action research aims to implement purposeful technology integration within the classroom to encourage deeper student engagement and motivation. As outlined by Munns, Sawyer, and Cole, strong student engagement is achieved when students are involved in tasks of high intellectual quality and view themselves as part of the classroom and practices. This is important in addressing the disconnect that students from EALD backgrounds often have when completing English syllabus outcomes, as they need to be encouraged to explore and discuss concepts and ideas that are oftentimes foreign or complicated to decipher. As a student who comes from an EALD background and struggled when first understanding literacies and differences between my home language, it is important to draw from the ME framework. By prioritising students' active involvement in classroom pedagogical practices, the combination of cognitive, operative, and effective learning experiences, students' engagement can be enhanced and their learning developed. An extension of cultural knowledge to add meaning to traditional texts is also beneficial, as defined by Prensky. Further explored by Anna Craft's 4 Ps of changing childhood and youth, the pluralities component highlights the need to extend literacies to ensure active participation and engagement of all students and revolutionise education for lifelong learning. Learning Experience 1 promotes engagement through allowing students to think about their understanding and challenging their ideas. Learning Experience 2 promotes engagement through involving students with their learning and giving them opportunities to make reasonings and justifications using familiar elements and styles of text. Learning Experience 3 promotes engagement through allowing conversations between different students, sharing differing opinions and ideas, thus developing their understanding of content and consolidating their learning. After the completion of the first lesson and following the whole class discussion, I will collect the drawings and voice recordings of students via their uploads on Seesaw. After the finalisation of the group discussion at the end of the second lesson, I will download the digital mind maps from the Mind Map app This will include students' ideas and reasonings. At the end of the third lesson, I will collect a copy of the finalised class PPT, including all groups' individual slides that they submitted on Google Classroom. The observational data I collect will ensure that I can focus on student engagement. By building upon Burton and Bartlett's suggestions, I will overtly and covertly observe students. These observations will enable me to collaborate with the learners as detailed by Rdep. They will take place when students are working both independently and collaboratively in their groups for Lesson 2 and 3, where they are discussing ideas and brainstorming reasonings. I will make notes accordingly of the groups on what I observe them doing, discussing, and writing. I will utilize an observation template to take notes on each student and analyze their levels of engagement with the task, which I will measure against the ME framework. High cognitive will include thinking processes' ability to challenge their ideas. High operative, analysing their behaviour, specifically involvement in activities, working both collaboratively and cooperatively with peers, and also high effective, looking at their enthusiasm, attitude, and feelings about the activity taking place. Furthermore, I will use inspiration from dialogic classrooms to collect conversational data in order to further evaluate student engagement levels. As outlined by Robin Alexander, productive classroom conversations can increase engagement and stimulate thinking, understanding, and development of ideas in a collaborative and supportive environment. By discussing and sharing ideas in an inclusive space, students will be exposed to differing perspectives and ideas, which will increase their engagement as they are interested and conversing their thoughts, which works better than writing for some students. Using conversations as a tool for collecting data will be immensely strategic in understanding the true essence of what students are trying to convey, as some cannot do so with writing complex sentences. However, this is also faced with limitations, as there are students in the class who may not be as confident with expressing their ideas or speaking out. The various forms of data will provide me with information to analyse and interpret differing levels of student achievement measured against the specified learning outcomes, as well as their engagement. This will be achieved by using observational notes, conversational data via recordings, and student work samples. Analysing the data will reveal if set outcomes have been achieved and show if students were engaged in their learning experience. It will further acknowledge that purposeful technology integration can effectively increase student engagement levels and enrich their learning. Levels of engagement will be defined by markers that are categorised by high cognitive, high operative, and high effective. These will be formed through guidance of the observation and reflection guide outlined by Munns and Sawyer. Analysing student work samples will support my understanding on whether students have achieved the English outcomes and if their abilities to plan and create a text for the audience conveys their opinion and persuades them. Markers of engagement within these work samples are productivity and ability to work independently, high effective, collaboration of ideas, high operative, completion of task, high operative, and understanding of concept, high cognitive. Observations will further support my understanding on whether students have achieved the English outcomes by using different forms of communication to articulate their learning and work collaboratively through sharing ideas. Observations can also identify markers of engagement by students having a positive attitude and problem solving, high cognitive, showing excitement and enthusiasm, high effective, and working respectfully and cooperatively, high operative. Finally, conversational data can indicate that outcomes have been achieved by students displaying their abilities to discuss ideas and points of view and identifying differing persuasive techniques used in the images from the text. Markers of engagement for this are active participation in lessons, high effective, thorough understanding of content and purpose of task, high cognitive, and ability to overcome challenges in task with self-direction and self-efficacy, high operative. As McNiff outlines, action research and its application have immense benefits for my professional development as a teacher. By self-evaluating my practices and pedagogies, I will be consistently equipped with effective ways of improving my teaching practice in classrooms, and it will provide me with the skills and confidence to achieve Standard 3.6 in the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, further supported by Munns, Sawyer and Cole. By becoming a self-reflective educator, I can adjust the implementations of my learning strategies in the classroom and effectively interact with students to provide and nurtured purposeful learning experiences that will influence them to become lifelong adaptable learners. By becoming consistently reflective and conscious of my students, I can collect relevant and important information to ensure I adhere to AITSL standards 1.2, 1.5, 3.5, and 3.6, which outline understanding how students learn, differentiating teaching to meet specific needs of students, plan for and implement effective teaching and learning, etc. I believe that carrying out my action research will enable me to view theory and frameworks played out in the classroom and allow me to ensure my implementation of purposeful technology integration goes beyond traditional methods. Thus, this heightened insight will provide me with specific guidance on how to differentiate my teaching strategies, achieving Standard 3.2, and enabling me to create spaces for students who are motivated and engaged, achieving the AITSL Standards 4.1, and encouraging them in becoming active, conscious, and well-informed citizens of the 21st century.